Hey everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter from the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. We are, of course, Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Raiders Today. I am your Raider beat writer. This is our assistant beat writer, the one and only, the legend. The man is legendary, the great Zeke Trezevan. Zeke, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Hondo. How about yourself?
Man, I am doing good. I gotta tell you, a lot of things on my mind today, and so I let's just dig in. Let's just get right to the itty gritty from Sin City. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
So I a lot of people are saying you got to use the San Francisco 49ers model when they moved up to 3 to get Trey Lance. The problem is that model doesn't work because the Raiders would be moving from 13, not 12, which one spot in the NFL draft is huge, and going from 3 to 1. And so I'm talking with people around the league, and I'm told at the time that the Raiders, if they wanted to go from 13 to 1, would cost them 3 ones and 3 twos. Zeke, if you're convinced there's a generational guy there, okay. But if you are not convinced you're getting the next Peyton Manning or Patrick Mahomes, the price of poker is way too high. So let's start there, and then I'm going to give you the latest intel I literally got this morning. So start there with me. Tell me, what do you think of that price? And is there anybody up there that you think is worth 3 ones and 3 twos? Because we're hearing Washington's not going to trade. I'm being told by people that I trust that New England maybe would, but is not has not decided not to get a quarterback. Unless you think all 3 guys are ones, you got to go to number 1. What do you think of that cost?
Yeah, well, it's all relative, right? So, that costs, for maybe another team, first of all, it's a lot no matter how you look at it, but that cost for another team might not impact that team as much as it would impact the Raiders. So, I would say, A, it's a lot. B, I would point out in terms of San Fran's trade, for Trey Lance, look at how it didn't really work out. I mean, they traded the farm and it didn't work out. Now, for them, luckily they have a roster that's strong enough that was able to withstand failing on that trade, but the Raiders don't. So if the Raiders were to make that trade up and it turns out like Trey Lance did, the Raiders would be set back for at least 5 years, probably if not more, after you trade three threes, three like come on, that would set them back a lot. So I think if you're going to make a trade like San Fran, you have to be sure that you're sure that that guy's going to work out. And I don't personally believe that guy is in this draft.
All right, now, and here's the other point too. They didn't lose their jobs because it was people above them that wanted to pick Trey Lance. In
Hmm.
this case, it's AP. And again, I don't think you approach the draft with fear. You got to approach it with confidence. But you need to know if you make that move, you're putting your job on the line.
1,000%. And that's for both AP and for Telesco, right? Like there's no way around that, right? If you make
You're
that move,
married.
huh?
You're
Yes,
married.
100%. Yeah, I mean, you talk about how, the previous regime was married to, the system in Garoppolo, et cetera. You trade up from 13 to, top five, top three, top one, whatever it may be. You're definitely married to that. And you got to stick with it no matter what happens going forward, because you don't have a first round draft pick for the next X amount of years. So you're more than married to that draft pick. So I think it's a lot. I don't think the Raiders would be wise to trade up that far. They just have too many holes that they have to fill. And honestly, like we've said the whole time, they're close, right? There's confident and then there's being reckless. And I think trading up would cross into that line of being reckless, in my opinion. I
I'm
mean,
going
I
to
should say
ask you
this.
right now. Go
I
ahead.
should
Go
say
no.
this.
Go ahead, please.
Trading up that far would be reckless, right? One, two, three, four, five. If they were to trade, from 13 to 10, okay. But anything up that high, that would be reckless, in my opinion.
Wow. All right. Strong opinions by the Z man. I like it when Z brings it strong. All right, Z. So I am hearing that from people I trust that they are trying to okay. So I was told the other day, and I mentioned this in a podcast. the Raiders are, I mean, that I'm expecting now the Bears, they've made the decision they're gonna use their pick. Justin Fields goes after I report it, and not because of my reporting. I believe though that they knew kind of what I knew. He unfouls the Bears, all of it. Now the Bears are trying to let it leak. Oh, we may not trade Justin Fields. I mean, trying to get the draft capital up. It's really funny. But now before the expectation around the league was they haven't made a decision. Now the process is, okay, they've made, a lot of people believe they're going to stick with one. And so now you got potential of two teams in Washington and Chicago one. And who knows what's going to happen with New England. If I'm New England, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not New England. So here's the next question. Justin Fields. If you can get him for a 2 or 2 3s, I don't think you can get him for 2 3s. I think that's too low. But you're going to get 2 years with him. You pick up the 5th-year option. Great kid. I know him very well. 0 character issues. None. He's CJ Stroud. Great kid. But here's the other problem. Chicago's locker room loves him. They've come out and said, we want Justin, just like this locker room said they wanted Antonio Pierce. So Bears let him go. And right now it looks like that. You're going to get a guy that you know can lead his locker room. You know guys would like him. You pair him with Aiden and let him compete. Go pick another rookie to compete as well. I'm just telling you, there's certainly some intrigue there. And I can tell you that the Raiders have, as of this moment of our taping, have not made a decision of what they're going to do. I like them kicking the rocks on Fields. They know Getsy. Getsy and Fields had a very good relationship. I'm not against going there and keeping your one and adding a quality immediate impact starter. You can add a Kool-Aid McKinstry, a Terrion Arnold, a J.C. Latham, and others. There's going to be so many great players at 13. What would you think of them either going Fields or another free agent?
In terms of quarterback, I would agree with that a lot, 1,000%. In terms of having someone come in and compete with Aiden O'Connell, I think Justin kind of checks a lot of boxes in the sense that A, he's talented, B, he's young. So while you could go get for instance, a Kirk Cousins, he's obviously a lot older, coming off a major injury. Just using him as an example, Justin Fields gives you a lot more upside to what he could potentially to what he could potentially bring to the table. So yes, I think kicking the tires on Justin would make a lot of sense. I think with Justin, you could, I don't want to say plug and play necessarily, but it's the closest thing to plug and play that you can put in because of his connection to Getsy. So I think kicking the tires on Justin would make a lot of sense. And then, like you said, use that 13th pick. And I know it's very conservative, but I would say use that 13th pick for and I'm biased, but for a defender, whether it's like you said, a cornerback, a linebacker, or even a quality defensive lineman. Although I think it would be more linebacker or cornerback than defensive line. So, yes, I would say stand pat. Go get you a young guy like Justin that just needs the right situation. I think that's why Justin's teammates came out and said, "Hey, we support him," because they understood Chicago wasn't the best situation for Justin or probably any other quarterback, or a lot of other quarterbacks, I should say. So yes, I think that would be the best route for the Raiders to go. You get your quarterback, you still add talent, and you don't trade the farm for, a maybe.
Do you know why I'm so mad at you right now? By the way, I just texted Kirk Cousins. Want to know why I'm so mad at you? Because I've known Kirk since he was in high school. And you just called him old.
Hey, I mean, no, so respectfully, 36, man. Hey, hey, listen, I'm almost 35, but 36 in NFL years, man, you're an old man.
This is what I just told Kirk. I'm so angry. Zeke just called you old. What does that make me?
Hey,
if he texts me while we're on the air, I'll read it to you.
Yes,
all right. Careful with your old references, although I am old. I am an OG.
There you go.
All right. So let's keep it going now. Um, I I love where the Raiders are. I love the way Telesco and Antonio are operating right now. And everybody, Zeke, that I'm talking to in the building, stunned at how well they get along, stunned at how they listen to one another. You and I talked about this. We both wanted Champ Kelly to get the job. And I think we both believe he deserved it. But I'm not going to dislike Telesco. He had nothing to do with it. And so he deserves all of the opportunity to succeed. And I told you, multiple people who he and I know and share as friends love the guy. We talked about the dynamic coming in, and AP's not his guy. Everybody, Zeke, is bragging about the way they get along, the way that they respect one another, and the way they're working through this process. I'm gonna be honest with you. I am impressed with Telesco because AP is a strong personality. And at the press conference when they announced Tom, I said it's AP's team. Telesco may be the GM, but it's AP's team. I'm impressed with Tom Telesco and how he's handled the process, and AP as well. Your opinion.
Yeah, so I think, the fact that a lot of us felt like Champ had earned the job, and I think that was correct still. I think that plays into it in a certain kind of way. I think the previous regime in terms of general manager, head coach were alike, a lot alike, obviously. Same with the one before that. AP and Champ, a lot alike. And I think Mark Davis probably realized, hey, for the last, basically 2.5 regimes, if you want to count Champ and AP, we've had two guys that were similar. And this time he brought in Telesco, with the experience that AP necessarily didn't have. A little bit opposite in that way, and they're opposites just in terms of personality and demeanor. But a lot of times, and specifically in this case, being opposite kind of has its benefits, and they can kind of play off of each other. And then, like you said, I think the fact that they work well together is based around just a mutual respect. And as you know, right, from being in and around the NFL, you don't have to necessarily work arm in arm with somebody to know what they've done or have an idea of what they've done. And then obviously with Telesco, he was in the division, so he's been keeping an eye on the Raiders anyway. AP played all those years. He knows about AP. So I think everything with them is just based on a mutual respect of each other and what the other one has done and what the other is trying to do. And then you put those guys in the same room trying to reach the same goals, and they're naturally just going to work well with each other. So Telesco brings a lot of history, a lot of experience. I think AP appreciates that. I think Telesco brings a lot of different things that AP may not necessarily see. And that's just from being in different positions, right? General manager, head coach, new head coach. I think that plays a large part into it. But I think they're going to work well together. And I think it's just going to get better over time as they continue to learn each other and what works well and what doesn't.
I agree with you a lot, Zeke. All right, I want to go to a different angle because I think it's an important one. I think it's one that we got to spend some time on. And we're going to talk about three particular people. You know this because you've been in the media now for several years. All PR people. In college, it's called the Sports Information Department. In the pros, it's the media relations. They love to control the narrative and the speaker, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're not in any way. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. So we're not in any way being critical of them. I think the Raiders are learning AP is not going to be handled. He's going to speak to whomever he wants to speak to, whenever he wants to, and he's going to say exactly what he's thinking. Now, you and I have so much respect for the Raiders PR. So this is in no way a slam against them at all. That's their job, is to protect the franchise. But man, going from Josh McDaniels, where everything was buttoned up and you had to get everything as a source, and that certainly didn't hurt us, but I'm just saying in general, to now, you never know what AP is going to do. I like it. I think it's back to the old school Raider. Take his head off. Take the head off the snake. I mean, he's just going to say whatever he's thinking. I love that he's so genuine. I love the fact because sometimes polish comes off as fake. I love it. I love how genuine he is. I like that he will not be handled. You try to handle him, and it's not going to be good. Your thoughts on that side of AP?
So when it comes to AP, in terms of that facet, I'm great. Like you said, you love it. I love it. I think we all do in the media. It makes our job just more fun, just, on a very superficial level, makes it more fun. But it also makes our job easier because it gives us things to work with. But in terms of the differences between the two, man, night and day. It's not really even close. Like, and I'll be honest with you, I think you were putting it lightly when you said that Josh McDaniels was buttoned up. Like, that's putting it very, very nicely. There's buttoned up, and then there's like covered from head to toe. And you could ask Josh, is your name Josh McDaniels? And he would have been like, oh, we don't know. I got to look at the film. Like, you just never knew if you could get anything out of
It would have
Josh.
been a
So
20-minute answer to tell you no.
yeah. So it's a lot different. And again, we're grateful for it. But this is what I'll say. I think although AP won't be able to be handled necessarily as much as Josh was, I think over time, I think they're, the Raiders guys are gonna get in AP's ear a little bit, excuse me, and say, hey, AP, you gotta. I think that comment of taking the head off the snake might have been, one of those things where the guys in the background are going to say, AP, like, just watch it just a little bit. But overall, I love it, man. It makes the job just easier. It makes it worth it. Makes it you want to come into work, right? Because what, listen, 9.9 times out of 10, AP is going to give you the real. He's going to tell you what it is you need to know. And so much so that I'll give you a small example with AP. One time I asked him a question in the presser, and he gave me a very cliche answer. And he knew he gave me the cliche answer. I came back the next day, asked him another question, and he went like 6-7 minutes just answering my question. It's little things like that that just shows awareness of, hey, he knew 9 times out of 10 he's going to give you the real, but that one time that he couldn't, he said, hey, okay, let me make up for it, right? Those kind of things, like as media, we love that. So it's night and day, and it's very much so night and day. And we noticed it the very next day after Josh was fired. It was like you ask AP a question and he's off the running. So I love it. I'm always interested to see and hear what AP is going to say next because he's an honest guy.
I do. I just genuinely really like him as a person and respect him as a guy. All right, so let's go to a little bit different angle because even though you're not old, you've been around a little bit. Now you got people like Max Crosby with his own podcast, and God only knows what I mean, we literally have one reporter, Carter Landis, whose job is to cover Max's everything Max says because he's out there. He's showing up at UFC. He's got a pipe. Same way with Davante Adams. You never know where he's going to show up, but when he does, he's going to keep it 100.
100.
I mean, this new age of media, I think it's great. I think the NFL went through a season where everything was buttoned up and everything was so polished, and people were trying to ruin the game by, if you tap somebody, it was a penalty. I'm loving where it's going. I think it's making the game better. It's better for the players. It's better for the fans. It's better. The only one it may not be better for is the team in the league, but I'm okay with that. Your thoughts?
Loving it, right? Back and this goes even back to, the on-field celebrations in terms of what you were speaking about, a while ago. It seemed like every aspect of the NFL was very the no fun league, right? That's what they used to call it, not too long ago. And that was on the field and off the field, to your point. And now, obviously celebrations are through the roof. Guys are running 60 yards to celebrate an interception, and off the field, guys are speaking their mind. I think the off the field aspect is huge because these guys, it's making them more personable, right? These guys show up on Sunday, helmets on, pads on. You don't see their face for the most part. You don't even know what they look like for the most part. But when they do these podcasts, they're more human, right? You start to realize like, hey, these guys experience feelings, thoughts that like every other person does, right? When they break a leg, they actually broke their leg. It hurts. It affects people, right? The things that people sit at home and talk about for entertainment, you realize when you listen to these podcasts that it's not entertainment for these guys, right? This is real life. And I think the podcasts help with that. And it gives them a outlet to speak their mind a little bit more freely than, again, they could in a press conference with a bunch of cameras in there, right? They're going to be more comfortable on that podcast with their buddies, relaxing and just kind of opening up. So I love the way the league is going in that, in terms of that direction and letting the guys be themselves. I think that it affects them in a positive way on the field too. When they know, okay, even also out of, off the field, we can be ourselves, we can have fun, we can speak our minds freely. I think for players, for grown men, especially making millions of dollars, they just want to be themselves. They want to be able to speak their minds and not have to worry necessarily about repercussions, right? And I think the podcast that you see these guys on and shows that they're creating, I think that opens the avenue for that.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. All right, I want to go in a vein. I was recently on a national show, Zeke, and I was asked, what is the biggest single thing that Antonio Pierce did? And we know he did a lot, but I'm going to tell you what I said, and I would love your answer. I said he infused the game of football with joy and having fun. And all of a sudden now, guys were released to have. You got Max Crosby literally risking his life to play, and it's, well, we got to watch a film. We got to be back to business. And AP made it fun again. They worked harder. Multiple players have told me they worked harder under Antonio than they did under Josh. I've written a lot about Josh was a teacher. They spent a lot of time in the classroom. No, they worked harder under Antonio. He was tougher on them. You know, where Josh would walk through, hey, watch a film, get better. Antonio walks in, what are you doing? I mean,
Yeah.
it was a harder environment, but fun was infused. Now, it wasn't rah-rah, it was better coaching, but even Patrick Graham was turned loose. Have some fun with it. Move Tyree inside. To me, I don't think I undersold him. And it wasn't mean there wasn't other things he did, but the first thing Antonio Pierce said, we got to have some fun here. I think that was the biggest thing he did. Your thoughts?
Yes, I think that was the biggest thing he did. But another thing I think he did, and so you pointed out how Josh would have those guys watch film. It was film, 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 film. AP was fun, 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 for lack of better words. I think the reason why AP was able to be harder on those guys is because he let those guys play where they were naturally good at. He played to their strengths, right? It wasn't more so, hey, we're going to try to fit you into a system. It's, hey, I know you do X, Y, and Z. Well, let's let you do X, Y, and Z. And therefore, when you mess up on doing X, Y, and Z, that's when I can coach you harder because this is natural to you. There's no you're good at this. We've studied what you do well. We put you in a position to win and you lost, so I can coach you a little bit harder. Whereas if I'm, in terms of Josh McDaniels, go watch the film, teach, 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 and then I'm trying to coach you harder. Well, hell, I've been in the room all day trying to study my film, right? If I mess up, now I'm overthinking, right? And I think AP allowed these guys to stop thinking and just go play. And that goes a long way in football. When you start to complicate the game of football, it's not good for the guys on the field. It's a simple game. So when you start to think, oh, I got to switch and I got to pull, like, I'm an offensive tackle that never pulls and now I'm pulling, right? For an example. Well, when it doesn't work out, that's going to lead to a lot of frustration, right? Because I don't even do this naturally. Now you're trying to force me to do something I don't do naturally and it doesn't work. AP is like, no, you do this well, do that. And let's go with that. So I think that plus having fun is why the guys turned it around.
Yeah, I agree with you. Great analysis on your part, Zeke. All right, I want to go to a different vein. I'm going to spend a lot of time on Monday's podcast talking about this, but I love the way AP put his staff together. He's got some experience. He's got guys that have played. I love that he has his son on there. You know, so many coaches, and you and I have seen it, working 100, 110 hours a week. Family in a lot of cases gets ignored. Not AP, man. I want my family with me. I love that. It's a great example to his staff. I have zero issues with his son being on staff. That's not true. I have a lot of issues, and they're all good. I think it was a great move. As a father, getting that opportunity, giving your son a break. Give me if you didn't complain that Deuce Gruden was on the staff when John was here, shut up. I don't want to hear you complain when DeAndre's on the staff. I like it. I like the staff he put together. He's got some head coaches on there. He's got such a broad group. I love he has a game manager. Every area that could be called a weakness, he addressed. It showed a lot of strength. It showed some substance. I'm going to use a different term. It showed some going out doing the staff he did. I like it. I don't know them all, but it's his staff. I like the way he did it. I'm A+ from me. Your thoughts?
Agreed. And I'll work a little bit backwards. Let's start with the son being on the coaching staff. I love that move. Like it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. If you're in a position to put your kids on and get them in a better spot in life, in a trajectory that they're already going. His son obviously wants to be a coach of some sort one day.
Right.
And now your dad's like, what do you, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like I don't see how you can have a problem with that, no matter who you are, where you're from, nothing. Like that's what you're supposed to do. In terms of AP's the rest of his staff, man, I think it showed a lot of self-awareness, right? It's you sit back and you got AP trying to get this job, and everybody's telling you how inexperienced you are. Well, okay, we'll address that one by one, and we'll make sure that when we're done with this, experience is no longer an issue. And that's what he did strategically. It doesn't matter, offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, just one by one. It's like he's just knocking them down. Experience, 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 and not just professional experience. A lot of these guys have experience on the collegiate level as well, in different head coaching positions, coordinator positions. There's so much experience in the coaching staff that he's put together. I'll be honest with you, I would love to be a fly on the wall in a meeting with all those coaches one day. Just there would be so much knowledge in that room from the coaching perspective that AP might not have necessarily had. So I love the hires that he made, especially in conjunction with each other, right? So maybe hiring one of those guys alone might not have made that big of a deal. But when you've made as many additions as he's made in terms of his coaching staff with experience, it has to add up, you would think. So I think it was a lot of good moves that he made.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I just think he put together a really good step. I'm excited about Monday's podcast, so make sure you check it out because I got some inside stuff on the staff I think is going to really, really impress you. All right, we now turn the calendar. I'm going to be at the combine all week. You're keeping Fort in Vegas, taking care of that. We brought in Aiden Champion's going to be there with me. Carter Landis is going to be there, and Braden Reedy. You're going to be keeping for the Fort down in Vegas. I'm really excited about the combine this week. And for anybody wondering, gee, was Zeke in trouble? Why he didn't go to the combine? No, Zeke had something, personal stuff he's taking care of, not bad, in
Yeah.
Vegas, so he couldn't go. But I asked him to go.
Yes,
So
100%.
Zeke ain't in trouble. Zeke's my guy,
Yes,
my dog. But
my guy.
my point is, what are you laughing at?
No, just my guy. I was just saying. I'm sorry. My bad.
All
My
right.
bad.
Well, you know what? It amazes me. People will look for, oh, there's issues. No, there's no issues. We're
Yeah,
tight.
no.
Um, but I want to dig in with you a little bit because I'm looking forward to this combine for a lot of different reasons. I know who they're going to be. I don't know all, but I got an idea who they're interviewing. I'm hearing from some other scouts some interesting stuff. We're going to have so many articles and videos with these players coming out, asking about the Raiders. I'm really looking forward to the combine. How about you, Zeke?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting time. In my opinion, that's right up there, obviously, with the draft is the combine, just to kind of see how those guys perform. Because for me, I always like the aspect of it's a different type of pressure at the combine, right? It's not 1,000, 100,000 people screaming at you, but in a lot of ways, especially when you're trying to get drafted, that could be a little bit more nerve-wracking, right? Especially when you're standing right next to your competition, right? And a lot of these guys when they're in college, they're the main guy on campus, right? They're the top dog on campus, and then you hit the combine and you realize, hey, there's about 10 more of me, right? So it's always interesting to see how those guys react in the combine, and I think the combine does a good job of showing you how certain guys react to adversity, right? When you drop that pass and your competition staring at you, how do you respond to that, right? Or when you mess up on that drill and the competition's right next to you and they do it better than you do, how do you respond to that? So I love the combine. It's always interesting to see how those guys perform for sure.
Zeke, I wanted to ask you because once the combine's over, then bam, they kind of start their draft boards fill out. Then they start looking at free agency. I know there are a lot of players that want to come play for AP. I know that because of the experience of his staff, I learned this yesterday. Those guys are now coming in. Hey, with what you want me to do, this is a guy I've coached. I know who he is. Go get free agency for me. And this will be my 5th year. This is my 5th year covering the Raiders. This is going to be probably one of the funnest that I've covered. I am really looking forward to free agency. The Raiders are going to get exponentially better. Your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. I wanted to say 1,000,000,000%. Listen, free agency is going to be huge this year for the Raiders, and they have the potential to get better very, very quickly through free agency, right? I actually wrote an article last night and for today, I believe, in terms of spending free agency, focusing on their offensive and defensive line. Now, obviously, they can use free agency for whatever they want, but like you said, with AP there, with all the different coaches that they brought in, there's going to be a lot of guys that say, like you said, hey, I had my best season or two underneath that coordinator, underneath that offensive coach. On it. So now, hey, let me go back there, right? I think it should work out very, very well for the Raiders. And I think this is where they have the chance to kind of take that next step forward in the division, right? Obviously, KC is going to be, number one. But I think, hey, if you want to compete for a wild card or for that wild card spot, yeah, free agency is how you get it done for the Raiders. And now's the time for them to go ahead and make that run.
All right. Two more questions and I'm done. I realize we're sitting here and the combine starts this week. So I'm going to allow you to change your opinion at a later date. But based on today, will the Raiders move up and select Drake May, Jaden Daniels, or Caleb Williams? One of those three.
No.
I agree. No. Next question. Will they move up or stay at 13?
So I feel like if they're not going to go after a quarterback, they're not going to move up. I think that's the only way they would have moved up, which is obviously to try to get into that top 3, top 5 range, if you will. So I think if they don't move up for a quarterback, they're not going to move up. And I think they're going to end up eventually just staying at 13. I feel like the draft could fall, a certain kind of way depending in their favor, depending on who they value at 13. But I feel like in the end, they're going to stay pat at 13.
Who will they pick?
Oh, that I don't know. That they got so many choices. I do think Kool-Aid from Alabama would be, a great addition. And then I haven't looked at the names necessarily, but I feel like linebacker,
Terrion
cornerback.
Arnold's the other corner from Alabama.
Oh yeah,
J.C.
yeah, he's
Latham, the
legit.
offensive lineman.
They could definitely go offensive lineman. In terms of at 13, there's nothing. I think honestly, 13 might be one of the best spots. 13 through 20 is a great spot to draft the offensive lineman. You're not reaching, and you're still getting a quality lineman. So I think
And
again,
Latham's
I'm
the best
biased.
right tackle in the draft.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they could definitely, shore up the offensive line that way, and then all of a sudden they only need to add maybe one or two other additions in free agency along the offensive line. So could I see them going offensive line? Yes. I love defense, so I hope they spend that on a defensive player just to kind of help that defense take the next step.
Well, the defense is really, really good. They got to address the offensive line. J.C.
Yes,
Latham, J.C. Latham, J.C.
yes.
Latham.
Three free agents on the offensive line. They have to they got to figure it out for sure.
100% agree. Okay, last question for me and we're done. Dylan Parham, the most underrated Raider. This guy is, I think, now he's only 2 years in. He ain't there yet. Has the potential being the next Art Shell. You know this. There's no bigger supporter of Dylan Parham, with all due respect to his wife and family, than me. I think the kid is a star. The NFL loves this kid. Are you shocked at still the lack of love he's getting? I mean, I understand he's an
Yeah,
interior offensive lineman. They don't get a lot of love, but Dylan Parham, star or not?
yeah. So I think he's a star. Obviously, he had, like you said, 2 years in. He's got a ton of potential. I think some of the reason he might not be getting love is just the position he plays, right? Offensive line. That's one of those units that you don't get a lot of attention unless you're messing up. I think that's part of it. But I also feel like because he's a relatively quiet person, he kind of gets overlooked sometimes, right? If he's a little bit more vocal, he would grab a little bit more attention. But in terms of his on the field production, no doubt. And then obviously his versatility as well. So cerebral kid, knows, the game inside and out. In terms of the on-field presence, no question about him there. But I think he gets a little overlooked again because he plays offensive line, and because he's just on the quieter side of things.
All right. By the way, I got an email yesterday or the other day. Your shoes, I bought you the Air Force Ones, have already shipped, but they're going to arrive when I'm in the combine. So you'll get them next week when I get back, but they're going to arrive when I'm at the combine. Hey, stay on the line. I want to talk to you, Zeke. That is the
Yes,
great
sir.
Zeke Trezevant, my assistant beat writer. Remember, follow me on IG. When you go to Hondo SR X, formerly known as Twitter, when you go to @Hondo Carpenter, go to si.com/NFL/Raiders to read all of our stories. Also in the upper right-hand corner, click on newsletter. You won't get spam. 3 days a week, we're going to send you an email with our best. You don't want to miss them. Tell everybody real quick, what's your X handle?
My X handle is EZ, as in Ezekiel, so EZ, and then my last name Trezevant, so TREZEVANT, EZ Trezevant.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again next time.